Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today I'll be playing this week's Midweek Magic Event, which is going to be Lord of the Rings Phantom Sealed. For those who don't know, Midweek Magic is a free weekly event where you're going to be getting 2 random rare rewards for your first 2 wins, as well as a mystery cosmetic for your 3rd win. Whenever they do a sealed event, like they are doing today, it is going to be a phantom event, meaning that we won't keep the cards we get out of the booster packs. Since the event itself is free, we're just going to be getting those prizes on the tracker. But we get to join for free, we get to play as much as we want, so this is a great way to get a little bit of practice in for the sealed format in a completely free environment, as well as, of course, get these prizes on the tracker. So without further ado, let's bust open our packs and see what we get to play with today. Alright, looks like we have some pretty good rares here. I think our only rare I'm not that interested in is Goldberry River Daughter, just because there's not going to be a lot of counter synergies we can pull off in a limited format like Sealed. There aren't that many types of counters and it's not that powerful to move them around. For our first sweet rare, we've got a Moria Marauder, which is very nice. There's a lot of goblins and orcs in the format, as well as orc armies that end up being these really big creature tokens. So it's not too hard to get some of your other creatures to damage your opponent, let you exile cards from your library to play them this turn, but even standalone, even by itself, if you manage to drop the Moria Marauder on turn 2, follow it up with some decent removal, or make it your Ring Bearer so that it's hard to block. The Ring Bearer is a creature that can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. So if you make Moria Marauder your Ring Bearer and your opponent just has like a 1/1 on board and a bunch of big stuff, they can chump block with their 1/1, or let the Marauder in and then you get some good card draw off of it. So really like the Marauder. It's a great Ring Bearer by itself. It's great by itself if you have a bunch of cheap removal to help it damage your opponent, and very good if you're in like a red-black deck with a bunch of goblins and orcs. So Marauder seems pretty sweet. There and Back Again is also quite a strong card. This one's a bit more slow, but that is fine for a sealed format. You get to make it so one creature can't block as long as you control this saga, and have the Ring Tempt You, so you make one of your creatures a Ring Bearer. We'll move over to that Ring Tempts You mechanic. So when the Ring Tempts You, you move your way down these levels all the way to level 4. There are these stacking up abilities. So the first time, Legendary, can't be blocked by bigger creatures. Second time, your Ring Bearer now lets you draw a card, discard a card every time it attacks, and so on and so forth. Anyways, the second part of the saga lets you pull out a mountain, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. So it gives you some mana ramp. That part's not super relevant when you already have 5 mana, but it can help you cast 2 spells in 1 turn later. And then the third part of the saga is the really good part. You get Smough, a legendary 6/6 dragon with flying haste, and when it dies, create 14 treasure tokens. So super sweet card. Just a 6/6 flying haste is already going to end the game more often than not, and if your opponent does have the removal to survive Smaugh's attack, at least you get a ton of treasure, and a very flavorful amount of treasure. We then have Frodo Sauron's Bane, which is a great Ring Bearer, not only because Frodo might be able to just make your opponent immediately lose the game with his 3rd ability if he's your Ring Bearer, but also because, as we said before with the Ring Bearer mechanic, your Ring Bearer can't be blocked by creatures with higher power. So if you have a creature with higher toughness than it has power, that's naturally going to be a pretty good Ring Bearer, because it means that if you have a 1/2 and your opponent has a 1/1, they can't block it and kill it with anything. If you have a 2/3 and your opponent has a 2/2, they can't block it and kill it with anything. I mean, if you have a 2/3 and your opponent has a 2/5 or a 1/3 or anything like that, it's not going to die. Now, they can stack up multiple blocks, so if your opponent is spitting out a bunch of 1/1 tokens, they can just double block Frodo or triple block Frodo. But it is still pretty valuable to have that extra point of toughness. So Frodo's quite solid, especially if you're also playing black. And then last but not least, we have Pippin, Guard of the Citadel, which is a super annoying, super strong card if we can afford to be in blue-white as a color pair, because a 2-mana 2/2 Vigilance Ward 1, not that annoying. However, the second ability is absolutely ridiculous. You can tap Pippin to give another creature you control protection from the card type of your choice until end of turn. Basically, if your opponent wants the game to progress at all, they're going to have to use a removal spell on Pippin, so they need to draw removal for Pippin. Otherwise, they can't use removal on any of your other creatures, because you can just give that creature protection from their removal spell. They can't get through your board state, because you can just block with one of your better creatures that's big enough to try to trade into one of theirs, and then also give your creature protection so that it doesn't die. If you don't have a big enough creature, you can still chump block and give protection to a creature every turn, and that creature won't be dying because it has protection from creatures. Pippin is just super annoying and super powerful, so we've got 4 really good rares here. 1 okay rare. If I'm playing white, we'll play the legendary land. That's pretty much how I feel about all of them. Not a huge reason to be in the color, but if you're already in the color, they're going to be nice additions to your deck. And last and certainly least is Goldberry. We're just not going to do a lot of counter shenanigans. So those are the rares. Pretty nice start to the sealed. We'll take a look at everything we've got here, starting with our multicolored and our colorless. Check our multicolored to see if there's any other directions we might want to go. We've got a Rise of the Witch King, which is a really nice reanimator play. Ringside is an okay tutor. I'm not a huge fan of tutor effects and limited. Those are the kind of effects that search your library for a specific card, put it into your hand. Arwen is solid if you have a ton of scry going on. Friendly Rivalry is just a removal spell. And Shadow Summoning is a really strong black-white card, so we've got some pretty good uncommons. Rise of the Witch King, Arwen, and Shadow Summoning I think are my favorite of those. But they're not massive reasons to be in their color pairs, so it probably depends on what our 2 strongest colors are single-handedly. Now we'll take a look at our colorless cards to see what kind of mana fixing we have access to, and it looks like some pretty good stuff. I'm not a huge fan of Wizard's Rockets or Inherited Envelope, or Shire Terrace or Great Hall of the Citadel, to be fair. Most of the mana fixing in this format is pretty mediocre, but when you stack up a ton of it into one deck, we definitely have the flexibility of splashing in a third color if we've got a good reason to do so. So that's nice to keep in mind. And we'll go ahead and take a look at all of our individual colors now and see what is looking the strongest. Starting off with our white, we have a really good curve of creatures. I don't think we have any super good non-creature spells. We've got some okay combat tricks, and okay like buff effect and equipment. Lost a Legend for a bit of a narrow removal spell, but still a good one in this format because there's tons of legends as well as ring bearers counting as legends, and this can bounce any legendary card, shove it back into the deck 4th from the top. So we've got okay non-creature spells, but what really excites me about the white is how many creatures we have and how they're pretty nice and aggressively curved. We have a 1-drop, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2-mana creatures, several of which are pretty good, like Westfold Riders that give you main deckable artifact and enchantment removal. Shire Sheriff can sacrifice like a food token to exile an opposing creature. At 3 mana, we have some really strong creatures like Eowyn, Errand Rider of Gondor. Rosy Cotton's quite good if you have a lot of token production. A lot of really nice stuff going on with our creatures out of white. We even have Build a Pony at 4 mana, which is absolutely adorable. Also very, very good with Rosy Cotton. Protector of Gondor is just a really solid creature that also synergizes with Rosy Cotton. Not a huge fan of the Soldier, the Stalwarts of Osgiliath. But I do like Eagles of the North a lot. I like the land cycling creatures, so really, really powerful collection of creatures out of our white. If we have a secondary color that has a bunch of good removal, but not a bunch of good creatures, then that could be a great color pair to be in. Any color that has a bunch of powerful non-creature spells is probably what we're looking for here. Blue looks okay. Double Gandalf is pretty strong. If you have a lot of cards to have the Ring Tempt You, Gandalf can draw you a lot of cards throughout the game, and that is pretty dang powerful. Being able to play sorceries at instant speed is also kind of fun. Saruman's a little bit slow, but potentially pretty strong. Kingfisher's nice, the Captains are pretty mediocre, Goldberry's pretty mediocre. Treason of Isengard, Dreadful as the Storm, some mediocre non-creature spells, but Arwen's Gift, Glorious Scale are great. Soothing of Smeagol is okay. Deceive the Messengers are okay. Blue looks pretty average. I'm not super excited about anything in blue, but I'm not incredibly disappointed by the color either. So if none of our other colors are particularly good, we could go blue-white with our Pippin and get that very powerful rare into the deck. I don't think blue looks that bad that we have to just write it off immediately. Blue-white Pippin could be a possibility. Take a look at our black now. All right, not a lot of black cards, but they do have the kind of cards we wanted. It's a lot of non-creature cards. We've got an Easterling Vanguard and a Mirkwood Bats. Mirkwood Bats looking okay for our black-white deck because we do have a lot of token production there. We have more token production here as well with Oath of the Grey Host. Some army amassing with Easterling Vanguard, Mordor Muster, and Orcish Medicine. We also have Shelob's Ambush, giving us a food token. Black's a little awkward. We've got one really good removal spell, Claim the Precious, as well. It's a little awkward, but we could, if I really wanted to, we could build like a black-white deck, but probably not going to be the best to pair up with other colors, because our other colors are unlikely to have as many creatures as our white does. So like blue-black would be really creature light, black-red, black-green probably. We'll see. Take a look at our red now. Ooh, it's a good amount of red creatures. How are the non-creature spells here? Well, I don't like Fire of Orthanc. I don't like Fiery Inscription unless we're like a blue-red draft deck with like 20 spells in it, which is not the case in Sealed. Quarrel's End's pretty good though. Cast into the Fire's a little narrow. Not in love with the non-creature spells. Also, the creatures are a little bit awkward. Erebor Flamesmith is not going to be particularly good without a very high instant sorcery count. We don't have a ton out of red, and depending on what our secondary color is, we're not going to have a lot there either. We don't have any Amass in the color pair to go with the Moria Marauder to get some orcs on board, so that's a little disappointing. And I guess we've got a couple goblins at least. Yeah, red looks pretty fine. The There and Back again is a very, very strong incentive to try to be in red. Moria Marauder actually not looking that impressive though, because blue and black, kind of the other colors that can get orcs, they don't actually have that much Amass in this sealed pool, so we are going to be trying to do mostly standalone Moria Marauder things, rather than having other creatures that will trigger it. So red looking pretty solid, probably better than the black, and maybe the blue, very close to the blue. I don't know, we'll see. Take another look at things in the end where we slap two colors together. All right. Checking out our green now, we have pretty nice curve of creatures. We've got a very good finisher with Quick Beam, Upstart Ent. This can just do a ton of damage out of nowhere late in the game, giving two of your creatures +2/+2 and trample. We've got some pretty great non-creature spells with 2 copies of Ent's Fury as removal, Bombadil's Song as protection, Many Partings for mana fixing. 3 mana, we have Mirror Guardian, which is a fine aggro dork. Brandywine Farmer, not particularly good unless we're really, really heavy on food synergy, which we do have Meriadoc Brandybuck and Mushroom Watchdogs to make food and eat food, but I still think I'm not that high on the Brandywine Farmer. Green-white could look pretty okay, because Mary and the Watchdogs and stuff do play quite nicely with our Rosy Cotton and some of those other white cards that we had. No, we'll have to take a look at a few decks here. I'm going to take another look at our colorless cards. I don't think we really want to do too much splashing. I don't think there were any easily splashable cards that looked super strong. Maybe like a Rise of the Witch King could get splashed in. But we don't really want to splash in a 2-drop too much. Also, I did not have a good collection of Scry cards for the green-blue deck. Black-white gives us Shadow Summoning. Blue-white gives us Pippin. I think those are the strongest 2 cards. Those are the biggest incentives to be in a specific color pair. But Rise of the Witch King's also solid. Friendly Rivalry's solid. I just don't think our red-green or a green-black would work particularly good together, or particularly well together. I mean, we can check. Here's green-black. This doesn't look horrific. Alright, Magic Arena just recently had an update, so I wanted to check if the deck builder is working now, or if it still lags out when you use the ability to sort creatures and non-creatures separately, and it does still lag out, so that is unfortunate. But yeah, I'd rather not play the bow. there's a lot of cards I'd rather not play in the green-black deck. So there's 42 cards here. We'd also be running the 4-mana multicolored card. So we could cut like 3 cards. We could cut 2 Bow and 1 Farsight. But then I'd still want to cut more. I'd want to cut another Farsight. Want to cut a Knife Wound. Probably a Nasty End. Maybe a Bombadil Song. And I don't think there's any super exciting reason to be in this color pair, even with that uncommon, so I'm not super into that. Let's check out our green-red. This would give us the Friendly Rivalry. This looks significantly better. Interesting. So we cut 7 cards because we'll have a Friendly Rivalry in here. That's 4 cards to cut right now. 5 with the Fire of Orthanc. 6 with the Fiery Inscription. 7, 8 with a couple Flamesmiths. And then we'd put in like a Friendly Rivalry and a Lembas. This looks like a pretty okay deck. Really aggressive curve, which is nice. Couple big game enders, some big finishers between Smog from There and Back Again and Quick Beam as just massive creatures. So nice quick aggressive curve and then some big finishers. This seems fine. Super reasonable deck. Definitely want to take a look at some white decks though, because I still think white is our best color. I just wanted to see, because those were the other multicolored cards that might be worth building a deck around, and it would be the red-green and the green-black. So I wanted to see how those 2 decks look. So let's start with white-black here, because we have Frodo's ability, and we have Shadow Summoning if we go white-black. So if we were to go white-black, we'd have all this, and we'd have a Shadow Summoning, which means that we would get to cut 7 cards out of this deck, probably Now for Wrath, Now for Ruin, Second Breakfast, kind of an expensive combat trick. Slip on the Ring, it's fine with Enter the Battlefield effects, but don't think we have a ton of those. We've got Rosy Cotton and Errand Rider. Guess there's Shire Sheriff, that's like 3, 4? Like 4 Enter the Battlefield effects, but I'm not going to play like Soldier the Grey Host here or anything. Stalwarts of Osgiliath. Fine with all of our 2-drops, keeps the curve nice and aggressive. We do a lot of 2-drops. What is the creature versus non-creature count going to look like here? So, I'm cutting 2 creatures already. So that's 14 creatures, but we also have Oath of the Grey Host, which spits out a bunch of flyers. It's kind of like 15 creatures. Mordor Muster makes it kind of like 16 creatures. Orcish Medicine's kind of, sort of. But I'm not really going to count that. So like 16 creatures. Don't really want to cut any more creatures. I guess I'm putting a Shadow Summoning in here, which is another creature. It's solid. We could cut like 1 more creature if we wanted to. Like maybe a Nimble Hobbit. This is a fine card if the ring is going to tempt you, because it's a solid ring bearer. A 1/3 means that there's not a lot of creatures. There's no creatures that are going to single-handedly trade for it when it's your ring bearer. I guess outside of like a 1/1 Death Touch. So if you make this your ring bearer, your opponent's going to have like 3 1/1s on the board to triple block and kill this thing. So if you have a lot of ways for the ring to tempt you, it can be solid. Or if your opponent has a lot of ways for the ring to tempt them, a 1/3 is a pretty good blocker against 1/1 and 2/2 ring bearers. Until they gain the ability to force you to sack your blocker. So let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 ways for the ring to tempt us. It's not a ton. One of them is repeatable though with Sauron. Well, Frodo, Sauron's Bane. Exact opposite of Sauron. Yeah, I still feel like that's probably not enough for Nimble Hobbit to be that exciting. We could cut Nimble Hobbit to play the Shadow Summoning. And I'm actually considering, we do have a lot of tokens, not enough for Now for Wrath, Now for Ruin to be super exciting, but it does have the Ring Tempt Us, and we'd like to have a ton of that going on in our deck to make it really easy to have the Ring Tempt Us 4 times to try to kill somebody with Frodo's third ability there. So we should probably put Slip on the Ring or Now for Wrath, Now for Ruin back in the deck. Both of them are kind of narrow, kind of not the greatest in different positions, but both of them have that chance of absolutely blowing out our opponent when we draw them at the perfect time. Again, that doesn't happen super often, which is what makes them narrow and the kind of cards I don't love playing, because if I'm on the defensive and I draw Now for Wrath, Now for Ruin, it's really not going to do anything for me. If I only have like one creature on board and it doesn't have an ETB effect, Slip on the Ring isn't going to do anything for me. They're both pretty narrow cards, but drawn at the right time, they can both be really strong. You know, I think I got a lot of 2-mana stuff. I think I'll put in the 4-drop buff the whole board card for another way for the Ring to tempt us. And that's 5 cards cut. We still need to cut 2 more because we're putting a Shadow Summoning in as well. Nasty End can be fine if you can make a token or Ring Bearer. You can sack and draw like 3. Knife Wound is just not the greatest removal. We don't have a ton of removal, but I'm still not that interested in Morgul Knife Wound. Not interested in the Dundane Blade. Unless pretty much all of my creatures are humans, and that would be 7 cards to cut. So if we want to play black-white, we just cut these 7 cards, put in a Shadow Summoning, and call it a deck. That looks like a pretty powerful, pretty fun deck. We've got some of the fun, unique synergies in the archetype. We've got a lot of token production with Rosy Cotton and Mirkwood Bats, which is cool. We've got some good Ring Bearer stuff going on for Frodo. Solid combat tricks, couple good removal spells. This looks like a super solid deck. I think that's quite reasonable. So I'm going to go ahead and save this deck so that if we decide that this is the best deck we can build, then I don't have to rebuild it. So let's save that deck. And then as you can see, if you're building your own decks on Arena and you're tired of the deck builder lagging out, it just lags out when you try to sort or use the search function at all. If you have nothing in the search category, then it's just going to work fine. As you can see, it's all, I can move it all around. I don't know why that bug exists, but it does. So whenever you make big changes to your deck, best to get rid of the search function. So blue-white, throw in a Pippin, and see how this looks. So I don't like Captain of Umbar too much. Drop the Treason of Isengard. I'm going to build this one a lot quicker, because we already have quite a solid deck at the ready, and it's a midweek Magic event, so it doesn't matter too much if I end up with the perfect deck list or not. So I'm just going to take like a quick glance at a blue-white deck here and see if that excites me enough to get me to swap strategies. The possibility, this is very close. There we go. That's probably about it. I don't know what's going on with the mana base. We'll obviously have to change that if we keep the deck, but this is what it would look like in blue-white. Very close to just mono-white. I do like the Pippin a lot. That's quite strong. Our interaction is quite a bit worse now. Like, I've got a counterspell and I've got a bounce spell, but the amount of ways that I have to deal with creatures that have resolved are quite a bit lower. Good card draw with Gandalf and stuff. Yeah, this deck looks super fine, but I am fairly certain that our black-white deck is the way to go, at least compared to this one for sure. Can take a peek real quick at white-red and white-green, just to show them off. But I know my tastes, and I'm pretty sure my preferences are going to lie with the black-white deck. Red-white is certainly viable, really aggressive curve of creatures. Again, it has that issue where we don't have much in terms of dealing with opposing blockers. We could try to run like Fire of Orthanc just to make it so our opponent can't block for a turn, which is pretty narrow, not good on the defensive, but it's cool. And yeah, green's got enough cards. We could make a white-green deck, but I think white-black looks the most powerful and the most fun to me, so that is what I'm going to play with today. So let's take one last look at the deck. Alright, here's a look at our sealed deck for today. It's going to be a black-white tokens deck with a really nice aggressive curve, especially for sealed. In draft, you have a lot of control over how you want to curve out with your creatures, how aggressive you want to be. And sealed, you're really at the mercy of what you opened, and our white just had a ton of great creatures at some pretty nice mana costs to curve out aggressively. Black is a really nice support color for it as well, because it's going to give us some better non-creature plays. We didn't have a lot out of white. We're only running 2 of our white non-creature spells, but in black we have Claim the Precious for an excellent removal spell. We've got an Ambush for a really good combat trick, Sam's Desperate Rescue for some graveyard recursion, just a lot of good stuff going on with our black spells in general, and it's going to be a great support color for the deck because it also overlaps pretty well with these synergies. We've got a lot of token production with cards like Oath of the Great Host, Shadow Summoning, Mordor Muster, Easterling Vanguard, and all that token production works excellent with cards like Rosy Cotton of South Lane, putting a counter on a creature every time we make a token. So lots of nice little synergies in this color pair, as well as a good aggressive curve of creatures. Pretty excited about this deck, so we'll see how it does as we head into the gameplay. Alright, here we are on the play with a Took Reaper on turn 2 into an Errand Rider of Gondor on turn 3. That should be a very nice curve. The Errand Rider is significantly better when we have a legendary creature on board, but it's still okay when we don't get to draw a card and put a card from our hand back on bottom, so we still get card selection. If we don't need a combat trick right now, we can just dump Orcish Medicine. If we draw like a 5th land or something, if I top deck land number 4 and then I draw 5th land off the Errand Rider, I can just put that land on bottom. It's a nice flexible card. So let's drop the Errand Rider and see what we draw. Lost to Legend. I think I would rather keep Lost to Legend than Orcish Medicine, but it's really close between those two. We definitely want to keep land number 4 to play Protector of Gondor next turn. I'll get rid of the Orcish Medicine here. Be ready for my opponent to play some kind of scary legend or artifact or anything that Lost to Legend could hit. Any historic permanent. Our opponent is on green, blue, and black with a Woe's Pathfinder on board to add a mana of any colors. They have 4 out of 5 colors if they're playing all 5 colors. They are going to drop a Galadriel, which is a solid legendary card. Can't attack into that with our Took Reaper. I think I'm perfectly happy to shove Galadriel back into their library and then drop an Easterling Vanguard. Send in the squad. And we are going to hit them down to 13 life. Galadriel's still 3 cards away. There's an Easterling Vanguard of their own. And an Uruk-hai Berserker. Very nice couple cards for our opponent. The Vanguard can trade into the 3-2. The Berserker doesn't have particularly good blocks, but the Vanguard gets a good kill on the Errand Rider. I think I'm still getting aggressive here and attacking with everybody. Playing a Protector of Gondor post-combat. But yeah, I would expect the Vanguard to trade into our Errand Rider. Alright. Well, this is perfectly fair. They trade their 2-1 for our 3-2. We trade our 2-1 for their 3-2. And then we drop a Protector of Gondor and go from there. I am going to play out this land here in case I nasty end into like a land and another spell next turn. That way if I nasty end into a 4-mana spell, I can still cast it next turn. If we end up casting it. Westfold Rider is the draw. So Protector of Gondor, they have to double block, so that feels like a pretty good attack. Everything else could just trade into a 1-1, but I can send in the 1-1s and that's fine. Yeah, I don't love the Took Reaper trades. I mean, if Took Reaper dies, the Ring Tempts us, so we get some amount of value there. I actually feel like all this is probably still okay. Because the Ring Tempting us, even if it just gives us a legendary, is fine for nasty end. Just make a legendary soldier or something. Alright. All looks good to me. Cool. Clear their board. And we'll go ahead and get a legendary soldier. Drop a Westfold Rider. And pass the turn. And then we could just nasty end this thing away. If it's gonna die. If not, we can just keep chipping away. Currently in a great spot. They've got nothing on board. They're dead in one more turn. Even if I Oath of the Great Host, or Oath of the Grey Host. So we'll cast that here. Yes, they get a food token that they can eat to gain 3, but then they lose 3. So they basically just stay at 4 life. Alright, Galadriel's back. Okay. They're going to have to trade Galadriel into the Westfold Rider and eat the food token and go to 1. Cool. They're down to 2. We'll pass turn. Oh, and they're really just out of stuff. They are just drawing stone cold nothing the past couple turns. One of those draws was because of our loss to Legend. Lost to Legend, the real MVP that game, getting Galadriel out of the way early so we could get our extra damage in, and then forcing them to redraw Galadriel as like a 3-mana 3/3 when they were on the defensive was really quite nice. So great work from that spell. Let's go ahead and claim our first random rare reward, which is a mythic rare. Urza's Silex from the Brothers War, a full-on board wipe that can also search your library for a Planeswalker and put it into your hand. Pretty sweet card for some casual Historic Brawl nonsense. Not bad at all. We are 1 victory down, 2 to go. Alright, here we are on the play again. Very, very nice curve here. I think my plan is to play a Westfold Rider and then play an Eowyn on turn 3. That way we can give the Westfold Rider first strike. A 3/1 with first strike is super, super hard to block well. So there's a Many Partings turn 1 from our opponent. They can go ahead and get a basic land and they're going to grab a swamp. We'll drop our Westfold Rider and pass the turn there. Let's drop an Eowyn. I'm still going to give first strike here just in case there's some kind of flash creature that I'm not remembering. Because I can't imagine they're going to play some kind of haste creature that I really want to block with my 3/1. I doubt they're going to go like a mountain and then play a 3/3 haste or something. So there's a Brandywine Farmer. So we are very happy to have Eowyn giving Westfold Rider first strike. 4 mana, I could play Mordor Muster and Took Reaper. Let's play a Mordor Muster before I do anything else to see what we draw into. Oath of the Grey Host. Okay, that's not going to change any of our lines. We're going to give Westfold Rider first strike attack with both. Play something else post-combat. I could Shire Sheriff sacrificing our 1/1 to exile Brandywine Farmer, but I don't really want to spend our Shire Sheriff on a 1/1. Let's drop a Took Reaper here and pass the turn. Gothmog, Morgul Lieutenant, alright. Get a Death-Touching Army now. So I could play Frodo and Oath of the Grey Host here, which feels pretty good because that sets up to where the Sheriff can just sacrifice a food token instead of one of my creatures. I think that feels pretty good to me. And that's going to set up to get us some flyers in the near future. Eowyn has put in a lot of work here, finding us a lot more attacks than we would have had otherwise. suppose I could also just sacrifice the treasure token that the oath gives us. Keep the food to gain some life if we need it. We've only got one card in hand, so it does currently look more likely that we'll find some usage out of the food than the treasure. Mirkwood Bats. Ooh. Now I kind of want to play Mirkwood Bats, sack the treasure to play the Sheriff. They lose another life, and then they lose 3 from the Oath of the Grey Host next turn, which is wild. Yeah, this is just going to be a lot of damage. Exile the 4/5 until they kill Shire Sheriff. First strike to the Westfold Rider. That can get an attack in again. They're at 4 though with 3 blockers, so if I attack all, I deal 2 damage to them. They block these 3. I've got a lot of food over there from the Brandywine Farmer. I think I just sent in the first striker again. But yeah, this Mirkwood Bats is going to be a heck of a card with this Oath of the Great Host. If it's still on the board next turn, get 3 tapped 1/1 flyers, make our opponent lose 3 life, and start chipping away with a 2-power flyer. March from the Black Gate from our opponent makes their army bigger, and there's an Old Man Willow that can start flinging food at our creatures, but they tapped out of the ability to eat their food, which means Mirkwood Bats is going to find the kill here. And they scoop them up. We are 2 wins down. Grab our second random rare reward. And it is going to be a rare from Dominar United, which is a set that I drafted enough and crafted a few rares from, to where we are just going to get a duplicate rare, our 5th copy, but I'm perfectly happy with that. More gems just means more money towards another draft in the future. We'll take it. 1 more win to go, and we'll get our mystery cosmetic. All right, here we are on the play. We've got 2 black cards in the hand, but I think they're both fine to wait on until late game, especially Nasty End. We don't need to play that immediately. So I'm going to keep the hand regardless, because we've got 1 drop into 2 drop. Okay. Our opponent did not have a hand that they particularly liked, and this is one of the downsides and or upsides of Midweek Magic if you've never played in these events before. Because they are completely free and there's nothing on the line, there are players that will concede super quickly. So even if there's a Midweek Magic event for a format that you don't play very much or you don't think you're particularly good at, you should still be able to find your 3 wins pretty quickly, pretty easily, because sometimes you're just going to find a game where your opponent will just scoop immediately. So there are some ways to get free wins in the event, and I guess our 3rd win is going to be a free win. So we'll look at our last reward here, but I will go ahead and play another game after this so we can actually have a full 3rd game competing for that final prize. But I guess first we'll get to see what our mystery cosmetic reward is, and this could be any cosmetics on Arena. Could be card sleeves, avatars, pets, and the least exciting one, it could be card styles, but hoping for some sleeves, avatars, or pets. Those are the really, really sick ones. Let's see. Claim our prize. Just gonna be an Aragorn Company Leader card style. Not the most exciting reward ever, simply because of just the odds of hitting it. So the way that they distribute these mystery cosmetics, at least from my experience, feels like they just have an equal % chance of every single cosmetic on Arena, pretty much. And 90% of the cosmetics on Arena are card styles. So you're just going to hit those so often that it makes them a lot less exciting than when you get like a sleeve out of the event randomly. That's always a cool time. So just an Aragorn card style for the random mystery cosmetic. But let's hop back into a game here. Let's see if we can't get a win to actually earn that Aragorn card style. All right, another perfectly reasonable hand. Shadow Summoning on turn 2, Eowyn on turn 3, Bill the Pony on turn 4. Quite a solid curve from turn 2 to turn 4. If we draw any spells at any point, we can cast those on turn 5, and then we'll be doing stuff throughout the game. And there you go, we drew a Westfold Rider, and I'm tempted to play that on turn 2 instead of the Shadow Summoning, just because of how well that plays with Eowyn. On the other hand, Shadow Summoning is also just really hard to block. So either a 3/1 first strike or 2 1/1s in the sky is quite likely to get a lot of damage in. Now I drew into Now for Wrath, Now for Ruin, so I kind of want to get a wide board state. We'll play Shadow Summoning first, and then we'll probably Vigilance with Eowyn, so if our opponent plays a 3/1 or something, we've got a 1/1 flyer up as a blocker. Ooh, Errand Rider of Gondor alongside a 2-mana legendary creature is going to give our opponent the full-on card draw there. Alright, 3 mana, we drop an Eowyn, give a Spirit Vigilance, and attack for 2. Another Errand Rider of Gondor, that is very nice. Nice sealed pool. Sam's Desperate Rescue on the Generous Ent that they forest cycled earlier. They're going to pass the turn. Alright. Love to Now for Wrath, Now for Ruin, but I think I still want to make sure I have as many creatures on the board as possible before I do that, so we'll keep playing our creatures while we have them. Here's a Bill the Pony. And here's a Vigilant Flying attack. Poke them down to 16. Pass the turn. The one downside of Bill the Pony, now I'm going to have to click the next step button a lot, because Bill the Pony can sack a food at instant speed for 0 mana. So Arena's going to keep making sure we don't want to sacrifice a food to have Bill the Pony deal damage equal to its toughness instead of power. Oh, hey, it's their own Now for Wrath, Now for Ruin. That's not that bad for us. Little spooky, but we can easily block Kill Gorbag. We can just take the other damage here, and then drop our own, and then they don't have good attacks again because we've got nice chunky blockers. So drop our own, then play an Eagles in the North these next 2 turns, potentially. Plus, Bill the Pony's a really good ring bearer. Yeah, this is going to be sick. We're going to not block. And then I'm going to have a huge swing this turn, where Bill the Pony is the card I'm going to give Vigilance off of Eowyn. They'll have no creatures small enough to block Bill. Bill's going to hit for 5 when we sack a food. Alright, yeah, if they don't have interaction for this, this is going to be incredible. Vigilance to Bill. Oh, it already has Vigilance. I guess it's First Strike Vigilance, because why not? Oops. I forgot everybody gets Vigilance. I should have just First Striked Eowyn. They could still, they could then triple block and I kill one of the creatures, and yeah, this is fine. I should not have attacked with Eowyn regardless. Oh no, Bill can... Oh, snap. Bill doesn't just target himself? Shoot. I guess I should have attacked with Eowyn. We should have went First Strike on Eowyn, attack with everybody. That would have been better. I didn't realize Bill could make anybody deal damage equal to their big booty. That is quite nice. That means a First Striking Eowyn would basically be a 5 power First Striker. No, that actually still doesn't attack well. Alright, cool. I didn't realize those interactions. I should have read the cards more clearly, but luckily we still stumble into the right play, because if I did go for the Eowyn attack, a 5/5 First Strike still just trades into one of their creatures. Like, I kill an Errand Rider, I do 2 First Strike damage to the other one, and then Eowyn takes lethal damage, so... that is fine. That is fine. That is very nice to know in the future, though. Bill the Pony with Eowyn is super, super good, because they're both high toughness cards. Lash Bill! That is an absolute tragedy. That is messed up. There's an Uruk-hai Berserker. Alright, they're tapped out, which means Eagles of the North to give both of our flyers +1/+0. is going to find the kill next turn, hitting them for 6 damage in the sky. I could trade Eowyn off into this. Eowyn will trade now that their ring is level 3. They make me sacrifice whatever I block with. But I don't need to, so I shall not. We'll just play the Eagles. 6 damage in the sky. And wrap it up. There is the concession from our opponent. That is the 3rd victory fully earned. This was some pretty great stuff. This was a really, really nice sealed pool. We just had some really good stuff out of white. A very nice, consistent curve of creatures, and some nice synergies in pairing our black with it, and getting some good token production going. Got some nasty things done with the Mirkwood Bats in one of those games. Never got to play our Rosy Cotton, but we still had some pretty good token synergies with Mirkwood Bats, with cards like Shadow Summoning into Now for Wrath, Now for Ruin shenanigans. Eagles of the North as well with the wide board state was great. And there were even some pretty sweet synergies popping off with cards that I didn't even consider, like Bill the Pony popping off with Eowyn a little bit there. Bill the Pony just popping off as the Ring Bearer was super, super nice, because hard to block that low power creature, but then it does a bunch more damage than it looks like because you sacrifice the food and flip that power and toughness around once it gets through there. So really, really sweet stuff from the sealed pool in general. And I had a pretty fun time in the event. Always nice to get to play some more sealed or draft for free. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed this video, you can like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you more. You can catch me live at the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can hit the join button below or check out the Patreon link in the description below. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.